I like Andy's podcast, Millhouse Podcast, because it is like visually appealing. Like you can actually, like I can sit and watch that. Like they have good guests. It's all in house. You know what I mean?
It just like it puts another element in it. Makes you feel like you're hanging out with the person more. I feel like versus just listening to it.
And for those of you,
but I don't mind either. Like, I listen to them sometimes without visuals, and then
I agree. And for those of you listening today, folks, we are back in our original studio setting, which I like personally. It's just like you were saying, like as far as like visually appealing, like podcasts. Like if you wanted to watch a podcast, like actually watch it. The old studio that we had set up, I think it was probably 5 or 6 podcasts in that we tweaked it, because we had guests on Zoom through the television, and this was gonna be evolving. Like no one here like was dialed into podcasts. Like this is what we're doing. This is the studio. This is how it's gonna look forever. And with the old studio we had, which was this one, and the one after that with the guests that we had on the Zoom, it made it easier for editing purposes to have the table in here, the TV behind my head. For those of you that have watched some of the podcasts on YouTube or seen it on our social media, it was just easier for the editing process. And it was also a little nicer because when the TV was behind the cameras and we were looking at the guests, when you would basically have the podcast on YouTube or whatever, you would have the guests like pop up as this little tiny screen. It just, I don't know, just like if you wanted to watch the podcast, it just wasn't very visually appealing. So we've gone back to the original studio. For those of you that are listening, check it out on YouTube if you want to check it out if you have not yet. We are not going to have any Zoom guests anymore except for audio. So we'll do like call-ins, you know what I mean? Which I think is totally fine. And especially if you're just listening to the podcast, having a call-in guest is, what's the difference between me talking on this or you can hear somebody like on the Zoom audio stuff. So I think this is more chill. I'm more comfortable. I can sit here longer. These chairs are incredibly more comfortable than the ones we originally had, especially when we were filming some, hour and a half, 2-hour podcasts on those things. It was very uncomfortable. So, back in the original setting. Our boy Scott the engineer is behind the cameras today. Scotty's got this new system. What'd you do? Just an update, Scott? On it's the new software update. We got killer sound effects now. Let it rip. Like, dude, these I'm so there you go. Rip it. I didn't dig that. There you go. So maybe during the editing process, because I don't know, maybe we'll do a live podcast someday.
He's just gonna let's do a practice real quick. Let's do a practice. Ready? Go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I'm here with my co-host, and then you gotta hit the do.
So we got I don't know if we're gonna play those all the time, but Scotty's behind the cameras today. He's ripping the sound effects. I'm here with my boys Richard Nicoletti and Matt Barovi. Thank you for joining me, boys. I'm your host, Brooks Robinson. And this is Cortland. Oh, you gotta.
You were supposed to do it.
Oh, there you go. My boys, Richard Nicoletti and Matt Barovi in the house. I'm your host, Brooks Robinson. This is Cortland Hooked, the podcast. Beautiful. Yeah. So we're gonna let this one rip today. I was gonna think of a title of what direction we wanted to go with the podcast. I was thinking more of an industry insider, just because I feel like there's things that we know, Richard, Matt, Scott, myself, and the rest of the people that work here. Like when you work in a job or a company, I should say, like Cortland, and you've worked here for long enough, there's things that we obtained knowledge-wise that just your average consumer or even someone that's fly fished for a long time just doesn't know. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's just, you work here long enough, you work with enough guys, there's so many pros and guides and captains that you have good friendships, relationships, professional relationships with that, like, man, they have some good insight or some techniques and tactics that like you wouldn't normally get from just fishing yourself. So as you're like a sponge working here for so long. So like there's things here that we know is especially like sourcing products. So I wanted to go over some of those later in the podcast, just in case our listeners, you know, they might find them interesting. They might maybe gain some knowledge. I mean, that's the biggest thing is I really want you as listeners to be able to get a little insight on some like key things that maybe isn't talked about just like openly that you would read, you know, in a forum or on a chat or something like that. So we'll get there. But I think the biggest thing that I'm pumped right now, not necessarily for this podcast, but just the fact that it's spring and the weather is absolutely gorgeous out right now. I think I'm looking forward to like springtime trout fishing in upstate New York is by far like the number one thing I want to do. I wait all year for this time of year.
We're going bass this year.
Are you?
Yeah, we just our buddy's letting us take on his old trolling motor. We're updating ours on our bass boat.
Did you guys take your bass boat out this weekend? Did you take the raft?
Yep. We're ready though. We're ready for just full bass.
Did you put the trolling motor on the raft?
No, we got to mount it, but it's gonna be sweet.
Yeah,
it's
I have a trolling motor for my raft.
Did you guys put in close to where you fished the other day, or did you row over there from the launch? I don't know if you fished.
Oh no, we were fishing that on foot.
Oh, you were?
Yeah,
oh, okay. I thought you were in the boat.
No, it's a trolling motor for the bass boat.
I'm looking forward to bass fishing with Travis Manson again. Honestly, like the whole Lake Ontario, St. Lawrence River, the smallmouth scene. Like I only got like a tiny little snippet of that last year. You know, in the 8 to 10 hour trip that we went on.
We're ready for Cayuga.
We gotta plan a trip, bro. Where we could bring our boat up to the St. Lawrence and fish it with Travis too.
I know.
And shoot some photos and stuff.
Now that we have a trolling motor that works, awesome. Though, it's safe.
It'll be a lot easier for sure.
Last year, you didn't know if the trolling motor was going to be able to take you home. If not, you know.
What we do need the boat for. So, actually, some insight here as well. Cortland has recently partnered with Bass U, and if you guys don't know who Bass U is, check them out they're on everything, every social media platform. But I think it's bassu.com or bassuniversity.com.
Yep. But
a killer organization. So we've recently partnered with them, and I think it was the Fred Rambanis podcast that we did. But I guess brought it up because is it Peter that works there? He was telling me that they're going to be up there. So is it the MLF that's coming to Cayuga in the springtime, or is it some other? I get all those tournaments.
I don't know, but
up.
we have to go to that.
Yeah,
too.
that was my point. Is if your boat is ready for us to go to that tournament, like
will be.
I really want to go to that tournament on Cayuga, and I think they go out of like Union Springs. It's on the north end of Cayuga Lake. But
do we have any pros?
Yeah, I mean besides Fred.
Will Fred fish that?
Yeah, Fred. I think it's an MLF tournament. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I forget,
that's awesome.
There's some other people coming up. Justin might be coming up as well. And,
does Justin fish MLF?
No, he doesn't.
Yeah. He was up here last year for a tournament.
For the classic. There was another. I honestly, and even Pete said this at Bass U, like the all the different circuits and the tournaments. Like I gotta. You said Sims did a post on
last like 2 weeks ago. They did like a full breakdown of like how to qualify for like the classic, and
but like what is what, like
how to get to the points.
Yeah.
All right. And it helped
and
me a ton.
I need to educate myself on that. So, anyways, MLF is coming to a lake close to Cortland. Mm-hmm. I mean, probably an hour away. From where they launch.
45 minutes.
So we're gonna attend that. Hopefully we'll follow around Fred and see what's going on there.
I'm hopping on Fred's boat this year for that.
You can't.
I don't think you can.
Really?
Bro.
For practice day?
I don't. Practice day, possibly.
Yeah.
I'm doing it.
If they'll have you.
It'll just be like 20 feet away.
Yeah. I told him we were gonna rent a giant party boat out there.
Just get pontooner.
I want to rent like a 60-foot pontoon boat and just have the whole crew out there. And we'll see how it goes. So, anyways, I'm looking forward to that with your boat too and the new trolling motor. Fun. I'm honestly looking forward to more golf this year, which I love. And Ricky, you need to redeem yourself against our boy Matt Rush, who beat you in the finale last year. that was an incredible win. But golf, there's like trout fishing and golf are the two things I look forward to most for the springtime. For me personally, like I love going out with groups of 4 or 8 with the boys, like long days, tons of fun. Like it's not really competitive, but it is kind of competitive. You know what I mean? And I want to see if we can get some more people here at work to come with us. Just it makes it more fun.
As long as you upgrade Big Bertha.
Yeah, I'm still rocking a driver from like 2005, I think, that my golf coach gave me, and it's well past its prime, and I just need to cough up some dough and get a new driver, really. But look out, once I do, boys, it's going down. So, golf, dude, trout fishing, bass fishing. Are you guys gonna do the Cheeky tournament this year? Did you do that last year or the year before?
That was in 2020.
Couldn't have been.
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
And you didn't do it last year, right?
No.
Would you guys finish 3rd?
6th.
6th? That's a fun. I mean,
I think last year they had like, I think when we did it, there was just under 200 teams. I think last year it was like 350 teams.
Insane.
So, yeah, just
when Chris and I did it,
next level.
When Chris Rochford and I did it, I think it must have been 5 or 6 years ago, probably 6 years ago now, maybe even longer. I think there was like 50 teams in it total.
Yeah. They raised an insane amount of money last year for the saltwater.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I think that was like the second time I ever fished in salt water, and I think we finished like 7th or something out of 50 teams. That was a seriously tough year for schoolies or any ocean fish for that matter, just because the winter was so bad that the migration was delayed by like a week or two.
Yeah, it's a hit or miss time when they
totally.
Kind of how it was for us too. Last year was really good though. Like the numbers last year were everyone was catching big fish last year.
Well, I think this year because like our winter was probably got to be one of the warmest winters on record this past year. Like we had like 0 snow, 0 ice for ice fishing, 0 anything, and we just came off a week where it was in the mid 70s to 80s for like 7-8 days in a row. I mean, it's cool out today, but I think that will spark the migration, to get it going. Maybe, even if it's a week ahead of time, that will help, that tournament and that time frame. When you're fishing on Cape Cod, like you are really dependent. Obviously, there's some hometown fish that don't leave, but I mean, the bulk of that tournament is built around schoolies. You know what I mean? Like migrating small fish. So I hope for both our shops, our customers, everything, that it's a good striped bass year. But I think
this winter sucked though.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we only got out ice fishing a handful of times. No big water ever froze over.
Nothing.
Oneida, I don't think was really safe for more than like a week. And of course that was the 1 week we couldn't be out there. It was tough. But like when you look at like the weather patterns from the last 30, 40 years, like all the no snow this year, everyone like raised the flag, like we got a problem. But then you look and like every 10 to 12 years, there's like the lowest amount of snow.
Yep.
So it's just, I think we're just going through the cycle. I'm sure like there's definitely some climate.
Like you guys
pressure systems moving, but man, it was just a low snow year.
It was pretty brutal.
Strange.
And I was worried about runoff specifically for like our freestone trout streams. You know what I mean? Like our runoff season is not like out west. It is short. It's a couple weeks long and then it's over, but we're dependent on that.
I mean, it was low this week already.
It was terrible. Like we haven't had any rain. Our runoff is gone. I mean, the streams are still really cold, don't get me wrong, but when normally our runoff does not happen in upstate New York, when the snow melt really takes off like late March, sometimes into April. You know what I mean? But this year, like, there was no snow to melt, period.
It was gone by February. First week of February.
I don't think the ground ever froze. So it is concerning. And then it's nice to have that really nice weather like we did last week. But, without the rain, dude, things have to like pick up here or it's going to get tricky.
I feel like every late spring we have that like 1 week of like 75, 80 degree weather and like cooks the water in a week and then you're just done.
I know.
It just happens quick. And last week was kind of that. I mean, it wasn't hot to where you felt like you were going to hurt any fish, but just second week of April,
I know,
water flows like that, heat like that, just not.
I know. It
just does not look good for the next like 2 months, month and a half.
It is concerning. Just for the long duration of like trout season. Usually like our freestones in upstate New York and in surrounding areas, you got April, you got May, and you got part of June. By July, like it's done.
Like middle June.
Yeah, middle of June. The last few
First
years,
week of June.
it's been like middle of June, exactly. So, but luckily we have the Upper Delaware system, which is a tailwater, which is an hour from the plant. And for those of you listening that aren't familiar with the Upper Delaware, it basically consists of the east branch of the Delaware, west branch of the Delaware, and the main stem. And it is one of the most incredible trout fisheries in the world, really. I'd say it's number one on the East Coast as far as like destination fishing where people come and travel. As far as like
dry fly fishing,
yeah,
for sure.
For all, like you have the Upper Delaware, the Farmington, you know, South Holston, as far as East Coast stuff. You know, and that the Delaware, like, dude, we're really lucky to have that like an hour away.
I mean, just growing up in Connecticut, we always had the Farmington, which was a tailwater, and even in like the hottest part of the summer, you always had, you know, a few miles below the dam that would stay, you know, 60 degrees. So coming up here and like getting in tune with the Freestone just schedule, I mean, it's so dependent on runoff, water temps, and time of year. It's
for sure
the window's short, and if you're gone that weekend, you got a family trip, forget about it. That's it.
When are you gonna bring your raft down there, Brovey? When's your first trip to the Upper Delaware?
I don't know, honestly.
What is your favorite hatch to fish down there? Hendrickson's, Caddis, March Browns.
I've never hit the Hendrickson's right. Caddis is always good.
I feel like Caddis down there all year long.
Third week of May.
Like mid-May, kicks off
when
Caddis.
When they first start popping, the fish go crazy.
When did we do our shoot last year when Mac came off? That was in June, wasn't it?
I think it was in June.
No, it was at the end of May.
Was it?
Yeah, it was May.
You're right.
May 25th or something, or 26th.
That was one of the most insane caddis hatches I'd ever seen.
Usually that's when they drop the water flow to where like wade fishermen can get on them too.
Sure.
And that's usually what like the caddis is.
So this year,
yeah, I've hit the caddis hatch 2 years in a row really well. Mid-May. Been awesome, just blankets, and they eat really well too.
They do
for some reason.
When those caddis first pop down there, those fish like they aren't super educated where you got to throw 6-7x tippet all the time. Like you can fool some nice fish on the caddis hatch.
I like fishing sulfurs too, though.
That is one of the hardest.
It's hard, but it can be.
I'm looking forward to obviously the caddis is huge, but the next thing I want to do when I go down there is just sit in a drift boat. Like we wade fish, you know what I mean? And most anglers, like you're either I'm always in a boat or I'm always wade fishing, but we're always wade fishing around here. Now Matt has a raft, and obviously we have like our boys with drift boats, but there's something about sitting on a drift boat at that river and dry fly fishing that it's relaxing. Like that there's no real loud highway nearby. Like it's just like there's some times where you can get away around a corner from like any road and it's just silent, and the fishing is incredible. And
with a few other boats,
it is busy. What river isn't busy at this point? You know what I mean? And that's one of the hardest things down there, and that's what makes that river really challenging, honestly, is like those fish are they're locked into what they want to eat because it's a tailwater. They're pressured. There's a lot of people, and if it's not a drift boat and someone peppering with the cast, it's a kayak coming over their head, just fun floating down there. So those fish, I want to go down there, and then when I leave and I get my butt kicked, I'm like, what the, it's
really nice.
Frustrating.
It's nice though if you can be versatile and you want a nymph in the morning, because everyone starts floating at like 11.
I agree.
Like the fishing from like 7 to 11 is on fire under subsurface.
100%.
Even like fish eating garbage, but like sometimes you get to those runs and it's like a Saturday at like 9 a.m. and you expect it to be full, and like there's like 1 or 2 people, and you're like, wow.
Yep. I would definitely
come 11, 12 o'clock.
Yeah, it's different. Everyone starts putting their boat in for the afternoon hatch, but you can make a fun day on that river if you're willing to be diverse in your tactics. You know what I mean? Throw a couple streamers really early in the morning or at night. The night fishing, nipping before the hatch starts, before all those people put their boat in. If you want to throw, trash real early in the morning from the night before, like there's something to do if the flows are good on that river pretty much 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're into night fishing, which we've done in the past. Did we go last year? Did I go with you last year with Ricky? Did we even night fish?
I don't think we
went. I didn't go last year.
When was that? A couple years ago?
2 years ago.
God, that was incredible, dude. I don't think I had night fish before, and that was just like, you guys both threw mice? Or did you switch it up? You did. You just stuck to the mouse the whole time. What did we get, like 8 fish that day.
That was
something like that.
Good.
That was a fun night.
It fished well. It usually does, man. I'm gonna run some night floats this year.
I love that. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. The night fishing's great, but I can't go out there by myself at night. Like shit's too spooky, dude. There's bears around. There are beavers around. Like every once in a while when we were there, I'm like, "Hey, Ricky," you're like, "Yo," I'm like, "Oh, all right, we're good." Like I just wanted to make sure someone was.
It's more so just because of the fog. Like you literally sometimes the fog just covers the entire river.
You can't see anything.
You're 20 feet away from your friend. It feels like you're in the middle of no place. Like
it is like
you got to come for a night float this year.
I did one. Fun. I did one last year with our boy Matt Ertzinger. We just did a short float. I think it was maybe like a couple miles, but it takes a while. You can go as fast or as slow as you want in a drift boat. You know what I mean? You can anchor up in some prime spots and just bump the anchor down and swing giant black flies through there if you want to, or you can just breeze right through it. So I did a float last year. It's way more comfortable being in a drift boat than it is standing waist deep in the river because you hear noises out there, man.
It's cold as shit.
It is cold as shit. Like it's a tailwater. You're up by the dam. The water's 50 something, 55, 60 degrees at most. Like Ricky said, it's completely fogged in because the air temps are really warm. The water's really cold. You can't see your hand in front of your face. There's woods crackling around you with bears and beavers running everywhere, and you just want to make sure your boy's like within distance of you.
I was about to say there's no bears there, but I just see Adrian post the bear.
Totally bears there. There's totally
last week.
There's not a ton of them, but there's enough of them where like it's in the back of your mind like the entire time.
If you want to see bears, you go to the Farmington.
Yeah,
I mean there's bears on the Farmington every day. Like
I just know like if I go at night group fishing with you guys that I'm faster than you, so if I do see a bear, I'm just getting out of the water and running as faster than you. So
you're faster than us?
Yeah.
I don't think he is. You don't have a knee.
You won't even play basketball.
I know, you can't even dribble.
That's because
How are you gonna outrun me?
My hands are tiny. I can't dribble the basketball that well.
We're gonna race after this.
That's fine.
And record it. We'll put it on Cortland's story.
All right.
Stay tuned for that.
Look at him.
That's fine. Let's go.
I got the tufts on. And you're
gonna get so smoked.
I gotta stretch for a minute. I am way older.
Oh, okay. Here it comes. It doesn't matter. The bear doesn't care how old you are. The bear's gonna eat you.
No, we don't have to race, bro. But that was a bold claim.
We're racing.
They used to call me Wheels.
Careful throwing those statements out there.
We're racing.
On the diamond, they used to call me Wheels.
Wheels?
Mm-hmm.
Bro. And they called me the fastest man in junior college lacrosse when I played junior college lacrosse.
When you had a knee.
I bet you were fast.
I would. I was, and then I blew my knee out and my hamstring. Dude,
you have like the perfect build to be a little speedy midi.
I was.
I see it.
I was very fast, and I blew my knee out, and I was going to physical therapy. I tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus all one shot, and they took a graft off my hamstring to rebuild my knee.
How did that happen, bro?
On a turf field in the valley playing.
Just running.
I was guarding a guy. He was going one way, and he went back the other, and I went back, and my knee kept going the same way.
Got crossed up,
dude. Bad. Blew my knee out.
Literally broke your knee.
And it was in summer league lacrosse where like there's no physical trainer there. Like it's just you and your college boys. Like nobody helps you off the field brutal. When you're like, bro, my knee hurts. They're like, come on, get off the field. Like we're still playing.
I think more and more stadiums and places are moving away from turf just because of the injuries.
Dude, it was.
I know my poor Jets. I mean, every player that comes to play at MetLife is getting
football this year. NFL football with the injuries, it was really bad.
You just watch it and there's no give. Like the grass, they could slide out on turf if your cleat digs in. You're pulling something.
No, you are right. So, anyways, I went to physical therapy, and about 2 weeks into physical therapy, after they took the graft off my hamstring or however they do it, and I got a call from the guy that worked here, and he was like, yo, you want a job? And I was like, yeah. And I started working at Cortland like 2 weeks into physical therapy. Stopped physical therapy, so now I have 0 hamstring strength on my left leg because I quit physical therapy and started working here. So that's where I'm at, and I'm like 10 years older than you, and I'm older.
No limp though.
No limp. I just, it's
which is
no limp. Just can't dribble a basketball.
I can't. My tiny hands and no hamstring. I'm like I could play golf and I could fish. That's the only 2 things I do right now in life.
If you came to play basketball, we would probably steal your other hamstring.
It would, dude. I don't play basketball. I never played basketball in high school either. I was just terrible.
Yeah.
No worries, man.
I would. If you never told me to play lacrosse, I would have said you were on the track team.
I never was good at baseball. No, you look like a
soccer
lacrosse player. For sure.
Soccer.
I could see you playing soccer.
Soccer too, yeah.
Golf and lacrosse. That's it. I was too small for football. I sucked at basketball. I wasn't tough enough for wrestling. That was it. The only 2 things I'm good at: fishing.
Wrestling
golf,
wasn't big
lacrosse.
at our school.
No.
Mm-mm.
It's
I
a
don't even think we had a team.
We did, but it was like 5 people.
Wrestling's very spotty, like lacrosse is, as far as like where it takes place, like where it's super popular. You know what I mean? It definitely, like wrestling up here, it's pretty popular, but you got a bunch of like tough country boys. You know what I mean?
It's
like,
way different.
They ain't playing basketball; they're wrestling.
It's way different than where we grew up.
They're taking those hogs to the ground.
Like, no one wanted to wrestle where we grew up, bro. No. Up here, it's like the biggest thing.
The last thing you want to do is wrestle.
Yeah, they're just bred for it.
Up here, big boys, bro. Everyone's just cut, tough.
Big country boys.
Taking down a sheep, neutering livestock. You gotta get it to the ground.
I agree. Not me, man. I couldn't do that shit.
No.
So anyways, what's your saltwater trip this year? When's your first one planned? Are you guys going to the
Labor Day,
the Long Island Sound again? In Connecticut?
We'll go there and come early summer. But we got a really fun trip around Memorial Day planned with some of our roommates and friends getting together. One of our roommates has a awesome house in Chatham, right on the salt pond. Usually around Labor Day, some schoolies slide into the pond. It's connected right to the ocean. It's awesome.
Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
What is the Cheeky tournament was always the week before Memorial Day, right? All right, so you're gonna have fish there, especially this year too. The way it's going, like all the reports that I've been seeing from like the migrate, specifically like the Braided Bay, New Jersey, just like off the charts. So as long as we can get some of those fish to like turn and start to migrate north early, I'm sure that you guys, being Memorial Day, a week after when that traditional Cheeky tournament is, I'm sure you get some ocean fish. Of course, you did last. Hopefully. When did you go there last year?
That was same Memorial Day.
Same Memorial Day? Mm-hmm. Are you guys going to go to the Sound this year in Connecticut?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I'll be there all summer.
With who'd you go with last year?
Mike and Drew. Mike Queerfield and Drew Somo. Yeah.
Queerfield.
I don't know what trip I'll do this year, but I'm sure I'll do one striped bass trip, hopefully one tuna trip, and I don't know. It's hard to leave here in the springtime, to be honest with you.
For sure.
With the bass fishing and the trout fishing, you know what I mean? Once that's over, and things get a little tougher, that's when I'll start to do trips, like ocean stuff, whatever you want to call it. So we got the ICAST show coming up this summer. That's going to be big. Looking forward to that. We might even do a podcast at the ICAST show, which I have no clue how that's going to work, to be totally honest with you, because Scott the engineer is not going to be there. I know you're going to be there, Ricky. You're going to be there, Matt. I will be there. Someone's going to have to run the cameras. Someone's going to have to figure out the microphones. I have no idea how any of that stuff works.
We'll just hop on with Pete. I know Pete will have his setup down there at the show. They do it every year.
All right, so our podcast will consist of us just being on Bass U. All right, we'll run that by those
Sounds
guys.
Great.
I'm looking forward to that relationship, honestly. Like, I know those guys are monsters. They're really going to do a great job pushing the brand. I'm like really interested to see like how that all pans out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? By, let's say, fall or late 2023, how many new things have come from that relationship. So I'm looking forward to that. Just those guys are great too. They're some of the nicest people to work with, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
What other events do you have like coming up this spring?
Got a busy spring. So this Friday, we're actually going out with the SVS, Shenango Valley Shenanigans podcast crew, doing some fishing out their way, just south of Pittsburgh. Are
you going, Matt? With Ricky?
Yep.
Nice.
So that's going to be great. Mark Burns and Chris, they run that podcast. Then the next day, they actually have a fly fishing festival. Let's see, Trails to Ales Brewery in Franklin, PA at 2:00. And then at 5:00, we're heading over to the Barrow Civic Theater for the film tour. So that's coming up this weekend. Super excited. And then on Tuesday, I fly out to Denver for some rounds out there. So
sweet.
It'll be busy next couple weeks.
Is that event this weekend 2 or 3 days? Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday?
It's just Saturday.
Gotcha.
Just Saturday.
I know I have at the end of April. I think it's the last week in April, maybe the first day of May or second day of May. The FUDR, which stands for the Friends of the Upper Delaware, they put on their annual One Bug tournament, which is just an absolute incredible tournament. I think they have somewhere around like 30 guides or 25, 30, 35, maybe 40 guides. I forget how many it is. And it's 2-man teams. It's a one fly tournament. You're in the boat with your other partner on your team. You basically get put in a different beat on Thursday or on Friday, and then again on Saturday. And it's a killer tournament. Every year they host it. It gets bigger and bigger. It's a lot of money to get in there. It raises a ton.
Are you fishing it?
No.
Dang.
Nah, I'm not
Come
into
on,
fishing
bro.
tournaments.
I thought you were. I thought that's why you're going down there.
No, I always go down there and help set up for the event.
Yo, your boy, Catskill Outfitters,
Paul
said that he's having a one bug on the Esopus.
They usually do that, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Or they did it years ago.
Yeah,
or they're bringing it back.
Years ago. Yeah, he said we should fish it.
I would do that.
He said we could get a comp.
Really?
Team.
That'd
yeah,
be cool.
He's like, if you guys come, you can fish it for free.
It's
hang out, do whatever.
It's not that I don't want to fish in the one bug turn. I only get so many times to go down to the Delaware, even though it's only an hour away. I don't like to be forced to be like in a tournament.
To do it one year.
I would agree. Like I did the Cheeky tournament. It was really fun. It was exhausting because like you want to do really good. Like you're representing the brand, in a tournament. And obviously we would be down there at the one bug. But it's fun to hang out with all the boys that come from the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic area to that tournament. Obviously, we fish alongside those guys, but I call it the multi-bug because we ain't fishing in the one bug, but we're fishing on the same river those guys are.
For everybody that doesn't know what the one bug means, like give it a little
It's one fly. So there's some tournaments out there called the two fly or the one fly or the one bug. So basically it means on the start of the day of the tournament, the guide will he'd be like, listen, man, this is the kind of day we're going to have. Like, it's super high water. It's muddy. Like, we're not going to get a hatch today. We're not nymphing today. Here's the streamer patterns that we're going to throw. You get to basically pick one fly for that day. If you lose it, you are done. If you keep it, you get some points for keeping your fly. If you obviously keep your fly and catch some fish, you get points for each fish. You get points for if they're big, if they're small, most fish, biggest fish. And that goes on. And then on day 2, it's the same thing. So it's really hard to go into the day because right now we're in kind of a transition period in the region that we're at because water could be cold. It could snow this week. You know what I mean? It could be 75 degrees, sunny or cloudy, like no wind, and be a perfect like bug hatch dry fly day. So going into the day, your guide is basically going to be like, and the guides get points too. So there's something in it for them. Like having the trophy as like the number 1 or second place, third place guide, like that means a lot to those guys. So they're not just taking you down the river for the tournament and making sure you have a good day.
How does it work?
So
you have to fish with a guide.
So you have to fish with a guide. Like all those guides, basically they donate those 2 days of time to the FUDR to take the contestants or the competitors down the river, right? And it's random. It's random who you get put with, right? So they section off basically the Upper East, the Big East, the whole West Branch, and the main stem all the way down to like Tower Road in Callicoon, like way down.
It's on the east too.
It's everywhere.
Damn.
They take up the entire river, but there's only like 1 or 2 people on each beat. You know what I mean? They really do a good job of splitting it up. The organization that goes into the tournament is absolutely incredible, and I'm sure it's an effing headache, to be honest with you. But after a few years of them doing it, I bet they're dialed and they enjoy it.
How many teams and guides?
So I'm not sure the exact number, but you're probably looking at close to 30 teams, I'd say.
Damn, so 30 guides.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yes. So they basically, most people that are guiding that river that day basically are allocated towards the tournament. Pretty
much. There's still guys that have full-time guide gigs or work for fly shops down there that aren't a part of the tournament, but they're running a trip. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, those guys that are in the tournament guiding, they'd be doing guided trips that day anyway. So it's not like you're adding 30 more boats to that river, that entire system. It's the same amount.
For sure.
So anyways, they split up basically just tens of like almost 100 miles of like river, between the east, the west, and the main stem, and it goes from the top all the way at the dam all the way down, like I said, to the main stem to like Callicoon, I think, like that.
It's just luck of the draw what beat you get.
It's the luck of the draw what beat you get. The guy doesn't know what beat they're on. And that's what makes it really interesting because early in the season, like when the tournament takes place, you could have a beat in the top section by the tailwater where the water's really cold coming out of the bottom of the dam. And the next day you could be at the bottom of the tournament on the main stem where the water's really warm and you get some really good hatches. Or you can get somewhere in the middle where you're like, the guide's like, man, it could be either or. Like we could get a hatch today or we could get nothing and basically just hold your dry fly in your hand for 8 hours.
If you had to pick one nymph, you're like, I'm not going to go dry fly, I'm not going to go streamer, one nymph pattern to run all day, what are you throwing?
How come? Why would you say I was going to only nymph, bro?
Because I feel like I know this answer.
If I were to do the tournament, I would throw everyone a curveball and I would nymph. I would even if the guide's like, bro, Hendrickson's caddis today, which one you want? Or it's a streamer day. The only time I wouldn't nymph is if the water was just ripping and off color. Like I'm obviously throwing a streamer. But I would definitely throw the curveball in, and I don't know if anyone has ever won that tournament on a nymph because I've looked back through. They keep a really good record of who won it, the biggest fish, what fly they won it on. Like there's good records on all that, and I don't think I ever saw someone where it was like, it depends on what you want to call the nymph, right? Basically, I would throw a size 14 brown nymph with a copper bead on it, and I would smoke fish, and I would fish a tight line rig. I would also fish an indicator rig. Like I would switch it up. That's the one thing that I think you're able to do with a nymph is like dry fly. Like you're going to fish it on a floating line on a 5-weight. You know what I mean? Streamer rod, whatever. 9-6, 10-6, floating line, or you could switch up to a sink tip. You know what I mean? But the nymph, I think, depends on what beat I'm on though. Again, that's the thing. If I get,
for sure. I'm thinking like a nymphing run.
Yes.
Beat.
If I'm on a beat on a section on the upper Delaware where I know I've nymphed before and I know the riffles I'm going into, I'm throwing a nymph 100%. If I'm going down on the main stem where it's a freaking mile wide and it's windy, I'm probably going to throw a streamer or a dry fly. You know what I mean? But if I get put in that tournament, if I ever did the tournament and I was in a section where like I knew I could nymph it based on past experience, I've fished pretty much every single beat in my career down there. You know what I mean? I know all the water down there. So I would totally fish just like a generic brown nymph copper bead, 3-4 mil tungsten. I could put it under an indicator. I'd run it single off a tight line with maybe some lead split shot to get it down, and I would smoke fish. I'd win the whole tournament.
Yep, I think that's
lights out.
That river fish is good nymphing in the slow water too.
100%.
Is it one fly or one pattern?
It's one fly.
So if you lose that fly, you're done.
You're done.
That's awesome.
And I remember Ertzinger told me the story because Matt, our buddy Matt Ertzinger guides for West Branch Angler down there, and he fishes in the one bug every single year, and he always takes there's always some teams of youth. There's some kids that always are a part of the tournament. Ertzinger always takes the kids out, and I don't know if because he doesn't want to get beat competitively or if he thoroughly enjoys taking the kids fishing. He's a great guide in the sense in that way. Like he teaches kids really well. There's some guides out there that just guides and kids, you got a 60-year-old weathered guide does not want to bring a 12-year-old fishing down
some
the
people
Delaware.
Just don't like kids.
Sure, and that's normal. That's fine. Ertzinger is really good at it, and that's what I honestly really love about Ertzinger is he really takes the time and teaches these kids everything while they're out there. He told me one time the kid the fly came unhooked off the hook keeper, hooked the anchor rope. Ertzinger put the anchor down at the first stop. Fly gone. Kid terrible. Never made a cast. It was an hour into the tournament. Kid lost his fly on the anchor rope. And usually what he does, if the kids are just not into it, he's listen, let's just throw some different flies on there and let's go fishing. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're not going to count it obviously, but he does a good job in that. So yeah, the kid lost his fly, the only fly you're allowed, on the anchor rope before he even threw a cast.
That's almost equivalent to when Matt and I did go drive 5 hours to the Cheeky tournament. We, fished the day before, just exhausted, stay up to 12, 1 o'clock. No, we have to get to the spot by 4 or 5 a.m. Matt and I failed to look at the rules of measuring the fish, what we need to have on the bump board and stuff, just the fine details of the tournament. Turns out towards the end of the day when we realized oh shoot, we're doing really well, this we got to make sure our stuff's in line. Not a single followed the plan.
Would you have to have the
you had to have your name on the board with your team name, and we just had
photos
of fish on the board cleanly measured, but
right.
No, in terms of following the
rules
of,
yeah.
The name on the board, the most simple rules ever, we just failed to read and literally almost almost disqualified ourselves if we won.
In the tournament instructions, it was you gotta bad. If you don't have your name on the board, it's instantly invalid,
You're DQ'd.
So it was
we
just
didn't
like,
win. So
yeah, we panicked last second and like sent them an email and we're like, yo, we forgot to write our name on this, but like
Cortland Line.
we're catching them though.
It was hilarious.
You do get like there's fine details in that tournament and any tournament, and when you are exhausted, you tend to read through those. I personally know that because when Chris and I fished in that 6 years ago, the time frame it takes to get to Cape Cod, it's like 5-6 hours, depending on where you're going. So we would leave at 11:30 at night, 10:30, 11 at night. We drive straight through the night, and we would get to the Cape Cod Canal with our surf rods right at like prime time, bro. Yeah. Just prime time. We'd fish at the canal until it died or until like the tide slacked out. We met up with whoever, our old boy John Stacy, Doug Jowett, jumped on their boat, fished all day, went to dinner, obviously stayed up because we're all gassed up, woke up the next morning, did the same thing, and then drove home that day. I think we basically fished Cape Cod for 3 days. I think I got a total of 6 hours of sleep and then drove home and got stuck in traffic on the Cape before we even, it was a 9-hour trip home. We got stuck in a traffic accident before we even got over the Cape Cod Canal. And it was just like, you go so hard, you're going to go that far and fish for stripers. Like, we don't have that in our backyard. You know what I mean?
Nothing's more exhausting than leaving the Cape on a Sunday afternoon.
Oh, it's brutal.
In full sun, sitting in traffic.
It's
after
brutal.
Fishing for 24 hours straight.
You dedicate that trip and you go so hard and you're like,
for sure.
Every waking moment we have to fish, like we're fishing.
Yep.
We are fishing. I remember fishing in that tournament. I fished a line that we used to make. I found one in the plant. It's called the XRL, which I think stood for exposed running line. Basically, it was a braided monocore, and it had like a 30-foot floating intermediate or sinking head. We made different models and in different weights. And the thing, because it was a braided monocore, it shot like a cannon. Like you could rip 80, 90, 100-foot casts if you really wanted to, if you were on the right platform, like not wading waist deep, obviously. But it was an incredible line. And I fished that the entire first day under the Route 6 bridge at the Bass River, which the ingoing and outgoing tides, there's a lot of like barnacles and stuff on that structure. And like the chewed up seashells or something in the, I stripped that line over my fingers for 9 hours one day. I woke up the next day, basically had microscopic cuts all over my hand to the point where my hands were seized the next morning during the tournament. And I was like, Chris, I cannot open my hands. He's like, what do you mean? I go, my hands
they're so tiny,
are sharp, like just cut to shit from that line. And it's like, the line's great, but in that scenario with a lot of like just the shit that was in the water going back and forth with the tides, literally it felt like someone like you had fiberglass and you just went like this for like 9 hours and you woke up the next day. Like it was the most, but I, toughed it out.
That's what people say about textured lines is like, if you're fishing in the rain or it's just your hands are wet all day, like if you don't have any protection and you're stripping big musky flies, like everyone knows the feeling when you cut the little crevice on your finger. Oh yeah, it's the worst. Yeah, you start putting your t-shirt over it.
It happens with smooth PVC lines. Never mind textured stuff.
Well, this texture was on another. The XRL lines are on another level of textured. I mean, it's literally thin coated braided mono, and they're great. Like, but if you're doing some type of fishing, whatever, where you're stripping that line over your like all day, like musky fishing, like striper fishing. Like, it wouldn't matter if that line applied to, like, dry fly, because, like, you take your shot, you know what I mean? You let the fish rest for a sec. You know what I mean? You're not
stripping in tension.
Constantly.
Like, stripping in, like, popping a musky fly is, like, sometimes it feels like you're stripping in a freaking big, what are those leaves?
A wet boot?
No, what's the big leaf that tricks you every time?
The big oak leaves?
Not oak. Sycamore.
Oh yeah,
like those leaves. Like that's what it feels like every strip of some of these flies.
So, anyways, I know all about that tournament and going. I mean, just in the Cape, like in general, like when you're gonna send it and going on a trip that's 6 hours away, you're getting there at the first crack of dawn that you need to be there, and you're gonna stay up and basically fish every waking hour that you can before you drive home. But yes, leaving Cape Cod in the hot sun in traffic is like the most miserable. I don't know how those people deal with it every day. The traffic getting off Cape Cod is brutal. There's one way in and one way out. Is there not? I mean, I don't know.
No,
dude, it's a peninsula.
It's one bridge.
It's just one bridge. So, anyways, I'm looking forward to that. I don't know. The FUDRs. It's a great group. That tournament raises a ton of money for basically the organization to go lobby for better flows and everything, and stream restoration. The biggest thing that group does is the flows are a huge issue on the upper Delaware because of the reservoirs and the dams, all of the water, why those dams and reservoirs were built. And I actually just wrote a blog recently that I think we're going to send out this week. Basically, the blog is titled Ultra Premium Dry Fly Tactics, and it's basically how to apply fishing fluorocarbon tippet to dry fly fishing. But the body of water that I talk about where, like, you know, this blog took place is on the upper Delaware. And I say that in the blog about these reservoirs and dams and why they were created and whatever. So basically, I think it was like the 50s or 60s or something like that. They built these giant dams, the Cannonsville Reservoir and Papacton Reservoir, and they built these underground tunnels that take water from the Catskill Mountains all the way to New York City. And all those dams are bottom release dams. Well, the water for New York City drinking water and daily use water is a lot more important than the trout fisheries on the upper Delaware. Okay, obviously you're talking million people or so drinking water, daily use water, and you're talking like a small trout fishery. So the FUDR, one of their main objectives, and not main objective, but like what they argue for a lot and what this money gets raised for is to help them go basically get minimum base flows in the summertime, you know, strict water use as far as when they raise and lower the water levels. Like traditionally before these guys had fought for the rights for some of these water usage, you know, issues and stuff, you would get these yo-yo flows where they would shut the water off, they would kick it on, they would turn it down during like the spawn in October when like the fish really needed water. They're trying to get more water to get released out of the dams to make the cold water go down through the main stem a little bit better, to make it more of a trout fishery. So it's a really good organization. Without them, that river and that trout fishery wouldn't be what it is today. So
I wonder if they have any plans to attack the Didymo.
I don't know. Can you, like the rock snot they call it? So there's two huge issues, and actually those issues are probably for a lot of rivers like around the country.
Just tailwaters.
Japanese knotweed and the Didymo. The Japanese knotweed is, I think there's probably
everywhere.
It's an incredibly invasive, basically, weed, and it's really basically looks like cheap bamboo. Like when it's unique, like, and it's super. It looks cool, but it is not good for the rivers. Basically, it has a root system that migrates really wide, but it's very sparse. So what happens is, like, it gets on all these islands and on the riverbanks. And when you get these floods, the structure and the ground is so volatile because the roots are all through it, right? And it basically it makes islands go away. It makes rivers wider. Like it just, the Japanese knotweed, because of its like root system, it's the worst possible scenario for a river as far as like basically eating away the ground during high water.
I think, like, I remember learning about this in school. I think you have to burn it. You have to dig up the root system and you have to burn it. You can't cut it. You can't pull it. Like even like killing it with pesticides, like it's like resilient.
I've seen them try to cover it too.
And then
hard to get rid of.
Then when you cut it, it comes back stronger. It's just like it's the devil. I mean, this stuff is terrible.
And when you're talking about a river system of, you know, basically, like I said, the east, the west, even the Beaverkill, Willowweemock, the main stem, like the amount of Japanese knotweed in that system is, dude, it's devastating. Like you will never control it.
Yeah, and I mean, if one stalk gets cut or falls into the river and just pulls up on the island 2 miles down, there you go.
Yep,
that's all it takes.
I don't know when it started down there, but there's, in the 10 years I've been fishing there, these little islands that have that knotweed have drastically changed because of it. Basically, when you get the big floods, the ground, the island is not basically built the same as it was prior to like when that Japanese knotweed like got there. So
Japanese knotweed will make you throw a 10-foot rod for dry flies if you're a wade fisherman.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're in a tight spot and you have a 9-foot rod and you have 8-foot Japanese knotweed behind you, like good luck.
Yeah, it's also very tricky. You're right to be a wade fisherman and deal with that stuff. You can't. It's hard to get to the river in certain spots.
To walk through.
It sucks to walk
through.
You can destroy it though.
It's so loud. Walking through it, it's like
before.
Sounds like that's when you're hearing a squirrel and you think it's a bear.
Correct.
You try to roll up on a spot stealthy and you step on that shit.
Before it regrows, basically like in mid to late May, the remnants from the previous year's knotweed is the loudest thing that, like, you cannot sneak up on shit. And that's why when we're night fishing and I hear that stuff, it sounds like 1,000-pound grizzly bear walking through. And meanwhile, it's just like this little tiny muskrat.
It's a little deer.
It's like
Bambi is just trying to find some water.
It's Bambi. So, I don't know. It's an issue. The Ditmo, is that what you call it? Rock snot. You know, that stuff's really bad. I think the Japanese knotweed's probably even worse in the sense of like what it's doing to the structures of rivers. It's definitely a concern. I see it around here on some of like our little trout streams in Syracuse where we live. It's like changed the way that those rivers flow. Like they're wider. They're not as trothy. They're not as deep. They get warmer.
And the biggest thing as a fly fisherman is you just have to be conscious of that, especially, you know, with Delaware system just being 2 hours from the city. I mean, people come from all over. And if you're not cleaning your boots, you're not letting your boots dry out properly, you're not like checking for, you know, invasives, going spot to spot. I mean, you could be passing along and these invasive species without even knowing it. So it's really important to check your gear and make sure you know what's there.
Let your boots dry out after every use completely.
The felt
holds it the longest too.
Right?
Yeah. Boats, felt
transports it the best. But if you dry your stuff completely, that's the best way to prevent it.
Mm-hmm.
Bone dry.
New York goes pretty hard with all like the launches having DEC invasive checks. I know, like for Skinny
100%.
Atlas, I mean, Syracuse is drinking water. I mean, there's someone checking your boat every time you're there. So it's needed.
The lakes were really bad, you know, with the zebra mussels. Like we didn't have zebra mussels on the little lake I grew up with on like 10 minutes north of Cortland. And then I think 3 years ago, like some random dude put his boat in, didn't clean it, boom, zebra mussels. And it just like it flips the entire lake. And in the invasive stuff, it's going to be forever evolving. Like there's just so many people that live in the world. It's so easy to travel. Like you can get on a plane and in 2 hours you're in like some other fishery and you're fishing. It's, you know what I mean? And obviously like your gear is in a little different situation jumping on a plane, but like just being able to jump in a truck, like, yeah, you can go fish these little freestones after you fish the Delaware or vice versa.
Yeah.
And you just don't think about what you're doing until someone really explains like what's going on. And I think a lot of people have done a good job. And I think mostly fly fishermen are aware of like basically stream jumping and what that can do to like an unpressured or like a low key stream. So, so anyways, those, like I was saying, those guys do a really nice job down there. There's a lot of issues down there. It's an incredible fishery. It's an incredible industry. We have a lot of great shops down there. There's a ton of people that make a living guiding down there. It's a good money maker for the town. I mean, without those fishermen and that fishery, like some of those little town, like it's a lot of money for those, you know, places. It reminds me of like Pulaski, and the salmon fishery that we have like up here, like the amount of people that show up from out of state and basically dump a boatload of money into that town during September, October, November, and even now is just like, that's what gives those towns like the juice to keep going. You know what I mean? Without that, it's like, yeah, you got a little timber industry. There's some bluestone. It's, you know, it's small. Yeah. So it's really important to keep that. Obviously, it's important to us at Cortland, you know, both through our dealers and for just, you know, our consumers. So I'm glad it's there and I'm looking forward to it. I don't know. I guess that's probably it as far as events coming up, besides like some, you know, ICAST is obviously the biggest one. And the amount of organization that goes into that is creeping up on us, I will have to say. I know that you guys are a huge help in doing that. Last year was your first ICAST, right, Matt? And yours. So now that you guys have seen it before, like, you know, kind of like what the tweaks and changes we need to make. You know what I mean?
As long as they drop the crate off in the right spot.
Yeah, right. The whole crate situation, and I'll get to that. But right now at Cortland, I think the biggest thing that all of us, Scotty and Ricky and Matt, myself and Chris and Nate and everyone in the office, like, this is probably one of the most chaotic times of the year, I would say, by far. Between it's really peak season, you know, in America, between, you know, the saltwater fishing is kicking off, the trout fishing is just full steam, bass fishing is kicking off, like all tarpon fishing, like all fisheries around the country are firing on all cylinders, with the exception of Alaska, I guess, but they'll get there. And it's just, you know, customer service is just, it's bumping, like phone calls every day. You know what I mean? Dealers are bumping. The shipping department is crazy. all of that is going on. And at the same time, we are basically finalizing everything for next year as far as new products. You're talking everything that's new, price guides, stock numbers, UPCs, pricing, sales programs, catalogs, the website updates. Like, it is absolutely, it's constant. You know what I mean? And it's every year, but that particular stuff happens during like our peak busy season. You know what I mean? So it's just, and then on top of that, you're pre-planning for ICAST. So it's absolutely intense right now. Every day we come to work, it's off the charts busy. You could pick something to do and work on that thing basically the entire day, and then pick something new the next day. But it's all important, and you know that, Matt. It's like you're doing the podcast, like we got to edit that. As soon as we leave here, like, you're going to have 3 phone calls, like, at your desk, like, guys need some help doing this, doing that. And it's just, luckily we have like an absolute killer customer service team here. Like, I mean, everyone, like, and if you want to chime in some way, shape, or form, send us an email or comment on our YouTube. But I would be hard pressed if you could find a better company that has more fishy customer service reps than Cortland. I mean, seriously, like, you can get you, Ricky, you, Matt, Scotty, myself, Chris, Nate. Like, if someone is not here, they're on lunch, it's next man up. Someone is going to pick up the phone. There's not a question that a customer has that we can't answer. You know what I mean? And if we can't answer it, it's a phone call away to one of our pro staff guys from some, body of water, whether it's redfish, tarpon, Alaska, that we can figure out the answer for. And I truly believe that, dude, customer service is totally what, has built Cortland and kept Cortland, what it is today. Like, by far, through thick and thin, like, our customer service team, like, this is probably one of the best customer service teams I think this company's ever had. Just in the fact that you guys are dialed, you're obsessed with it, everything. Like, you're both inside sales reps. Like, Matt, about halibut fishing now. You know what I mean? Arkansas, like the whole White River system, like all the territories that you cover now. Ricky, you're the same way. Southern California tuna fishing. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a body of water in America, bass fishing, walleye fishing, you name it, that we can't figure out the product you need, where to go, who to talk to, what shop to like get in touch with. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful that at least during this insane busy time for new product development and peak season in general, that we got a squad here. Yep. And I think it definitely makes a difference. I think also for customers to be able to call up, like, dude, there's so many places that I just want to get somebody on the phone with, like specifically the rental car place in Syracuse, Enterprise. I'm talking about you, bro.
Impossible.
TurboTax. Bro, it doesn't matter. The world we live in right now, like, everything is automated. It's send us an email. I'm like, I just want to get somebody on the phone. You know what I mean? Like, I rent a car at Enterprise at East Syracuse, and I just want to talk to Monica on the phone. I know she works there. She works there every day. I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure that you got the SUV that I need. I'm going to a trade show. Like, I need some trunk space here. You know what I mean? It's just like, press 1 for customer service. Well, I press 1, and it's like, are you looking to buy, sell, or trade your car? I'm like, I'm looking to rent a car. I don't know what button to press. And then it's like, you go through all these numbers, and you get no one, or you get sent to like the Enterprise overseas that does general customer. But I just want to talk to Monica at East Syracuse Enterprise.
You gotta just call the local branch.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, the worst is when the local branch number listed just takes you to the
national. There is no local branch number.
That's what I'm saying. And it's not just them. I don't mean to pick on you, Enterprise in East Syracuse, but every customer service department, it seems like, it doesn't matter what the product is as far as customer service. There's very few products out there that have companies where you can just literally pick up the phone and talk to somebody on the phone. The most basic question. You literally call Cortland, press 1 for customer service. Those 6-7 guys I just mentioned, someone there is answering the phone. You know what I mean? Sure. And we'll get it figured out. And if it's not us, Big Steve out there, he'll answer the phone and he'll point you in the right direction. So I encourage you folks, if you have a question, regardless of what it is, if it's about a product, if it's about a rod, if it's about a fishery, if it's about something that you feel like we can assist you with, just pick up the phone and call us, because you will get somebody that we just discussed on the phone, and they're going to have the right answer. And like I said, I'm just grateful that you guys are dialed in your daily, knowledge of Cortland and just being able to help people. And I'm grateful.
Goes a long way.
Pride ourselves on good customer service. Dude, Scotty's on fire.
I can't tell you how many rods Scott has repaired in the last 3 weeks. I mean, today there was at least 6.
It's always
6 or 7 broken nymph rods. And I mean, and we're talking like not broken rods from like fishing. We're talking like guys blatantly like,
car door.
Wife, put up the window. Forget about it.
It's always peak season because someone broke it in the off season, like moving it in their basement, or like last August they go, it's the last trip. I'll get it fixed. And then they come up and it's like getting close to May, and they're like, my rod's broken. Yeah. The worst are like the rods that, we made 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And they're like, you got a tip section for this? I'm like, dude, we haven't had that rod in like 30, 35 years. But
we help them out.
We help them out, man. And that's, dude, we always there's always an answer to the question, a solution to the problem. You know what I mean? Like if that rod just does not exist, it's like so old. Like we got new ones we'll help you out with. You know what I mean? And Scott, you do a great job. Not only is Scotty Too Hot, he's Scott the engineer behind the cameras, but he's also your rod repairman in customer service, and he's dialed doing it. No, you're right, dude. And that's another thing.
Insane.
Peak season. You know what I mean? Dude broke his rod 6 months ago. He waits all the way the week before his trip. But guess what? We're gonna get you that damn rod back.
Yeah, within like a week.
Our turnaround time is incredible, and I see it on our social media. Like people give us shout outs for that all the time.
Yeah. For anybody listening, you break a nymph rod. All you have to do is call us, text us what section it is. Make sure we have your name and your email. We can send you the direct invoice for that section, and then as soon as you pay it, fill out the shipping and billing. It's gone the next day.
It's out of here.
So within a week.
If you place an order on Monday for a broken rod section, you'll get it by Friday if you're in the Northeast.
For sure.
Easily.
Guaranteed.
Sometimes it leaves you, like if we get
You don't got to send your rod back in. You don't got to wait for us to receive it and confirm it. You're wondering if you put in the right address. No. Come on. Don't play with us.
So, no, we're dialed. And again, that's another aspect of peak season that I didn't address before. Is just
rods.
Just rods.
Broken
customer,
rods.
Dude, anything. Like, stuff happens. Wife shut it in the car door, ran over. We've heard it all. I mean, literally have heard it all. There's not a broken rod comment that I have. I mean, occasionally once a year you'll hear a new one where you're like, wow, I have not heard that one yet, but it's really good.
Shout out Noah Shapiro.
Yeah, Noah Shapiro.
If you want a good rod breaking story, just shoot him a DM. He'll tell you the most recent one. And it's awesome.
There's some really good ones out. And the guys that are like honest about how it went down, those guys
those are the guys you take care of.
Those are the guys you take care of. Like there's no BS about their story. They're not like, I think it,
broke during a fish.
Yeah, no.
No, I fell off a cliff and landed on that shit.
Oh gosh.
Those are the people that get free sections.
Yeah.
If you're listening, be honest.
Be honest
with yourself,
man.
with us. It goes a long way.
It does.
If your story is that legit, we might even go the extra mile and help you out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I got today, folks. Boys, appreciate your time. You guys, seriously, you guys crush it. Customer service, that is so important to Cortland.
Nah, dude, you crush it.
You crush it. Scotty, you're crushing it over there. The new sound effects. We're getting dialed here with the podcast. I'm loving the setup again. Like I couldn't do the old setup. We're back right now.
Boys are back in time.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of that, so be on the lookout. Our next podcast after this one airs is with the legendary John Shaner. John Shaner is going to be in studio. For those of you that don't know John Shaner, just Google John Shaner fly fishing, and it just pages will pop up. The guy is absolutely incredible. Boatload of knowledge. He was a former Cortland sales rep. I think he worked for Cortland at one time. He guided in Montana. Just absolutely dialed. Like the guy has done it all. Fishes in England. He's got epic food stories. He knows everywhere to eat around the country. The guy is he's one of the nicest, smartest people. And I'm confident that podcast will be really good. He's dialed with what he knows. He's a super nice guy. He's very knowledgeable. He's very genuine. I'm looking forward to that. I think Nate our boy Nate Dablock's got to do that podcast with us. You guys can sit in, obviously, behind the cameras. But Nate and John Shaner go way back. Nate's been here for like 25 years, you know, back when Shaner was a sales rep for Cortland. So I feel like he'd be a good co-host to have involved in that one. No offense to you boys. He's just, you know, Nate Dogg and Shaner. Those guys go way back. So, and I'm sure you guys will want to sit in and chill, and I'm sure it'll, you know, I think he's done a couple podcasts, but sometimes when there's more people and, you know, makes it a little more relaxing. You get some facial expressions when things are funny.
As long as it's not 80 degrees in the office.
Yeah, we'll turn the AC on. Shaner's going to need some AC. He's going to be like, nah, I ain't doing that. So, anyways, folks, that's it. Thanks for joining us. Join us next time on Cortland Hooked.